Our setting is an exterior city street, late at night. A young man named Luke wanders down the street after a night at the bar. He needs to relieve himself, and so wanders into an alley. There is a homeless man hiding in there who is nearly 7 feet tall, skinny, and has a hood over his head. Luke looks over at the man as he is zipping his fly, and suddenly the man's eyes flash with a white glow. This stops Luke in his tracks. He does a double take as if to check his eyesight, like someone who had drank one too many. The tall man looks away. Luke walks over towards him and speaks. "Hey, big fella, are you gonna be alright?" The strange man says nothing but just looks over at him blankly. "Hey, it's cold out here. Want to buy you a drink at the bar or something? Some whiskey? Your kind like the drink, don't you?" The strange man looks directly at him with piercing eyes and pauses, as if he were making up his mind about something. Then he speaks. The camera gets a medium close-up of his face, and we finally get a good look at him. The alley man says, "I don't drink, but I wouldn't mind a sandwich." "Well, come with me, buddy. I'll get you a sandwich." The man looks like he is hesitating. He doesn't look like he's used to being spoken to by anyone. He seems tired and hungry. "Okay. Thank you." The camera catches a look from Luke that shows he's a bit leery of this man. Luke waits for the man to slowly saunter over to him, and they walk over to a nearby diner. As they enter the door, it starts to rain and thunder. It becomes loud right away in the background. Luke orders a sandwich, and it is brought over to the table. They sit in silence as the man eats hungrily. Luke patiently lets the man finish eating before trying to speak with him. But he's a bit nervous. He's looking around to see if anyone is looking at him sitting with this odd man. The man looks unspeakably tired, as if he has been through great suffering and trauma. He finally puts down the sandwich and speaks. "Do you believe in God? Or angels?" Luke is taken aback by the question and says nothing. "Well, they exist." He eats the last bit of his sandwich and wipes his mouth. "And forget everything you might think you know about God's plan, because not one human on earth even has a clue about that. His angels don't even really understand it. Let me tell you a story. In the days before time, God created 10 choirs of angels. Each choir of angels represented a branch of the tree of life and was lorded over by a particular archangel." Luke starts to look really self-conscious now and looks around to see if anyone's staring at them. Strangely enough, nobody is. There are hardly any people now, as some have left, and those that are there are engaged in their own conversations. So, relieved, Luke looks back at the man. "There are many kinds of angels in heaven. Some look like gigantic wheels of light, or pillars of fire. Others have many animal heads and 4 wings. There are also those that look more like men and women. Some of them have wings, while others don't. Messenger angels often don't have wings, so they don't scare the hell out of whoever they are giving the message to. That got figured out after a few humans crapped their pants from seeing a person with gigantic wings." The camera switches to a shot of Luke looking almost like he's about to crap his own pants. The waitress comes walking up. "Are you boys all set?" "No, I would like to order 2 Cokes and 2 soups of the day for me and my friend here." The waitress looks over at the alley man, who is still wearing his hood and is not looking up at her. She looks a little bit disturbed and looks back at Luke. "Coming right up, sir." She walks away, and the alley man continues right where he left off. "So, the 8th choir of angels were called Beni Elohim. That was what the Hebrews called them. That means sons of God. Archangel Michael was assigned to be their leader. But they were led into rebellion by an angel named Samyaza. was jealous of humans. 'Cause, well, you were given free will, you see, over whether they wanted to worship God or not. So while it was still in the early days of man, Semyaza started a rebellion against God. It started out as murmurings between him and the other angels, and soon Semyaza's lust to rule mankind grew inside him, and a great war broke out in heaven. Archangel Michael looked over at Semyaza, and he knew one day this was going to be trouble. He took on Semyaza himself, for Semyaza was part of the choir which he lorded over. It was a great battle indeed, a great battle. The camera pulls away from the men in the diner and out of the rooftop towards the sky. We are soon in the clouds and have gone back in time. There are two angels fighting. One is glowing blue with a golden shield and a sword with blue flame. This one is Michael. The other is glowing red, and he also has a golden shield, but his sword is pitch black. This is Semyaza. Loud clashes are heard that sound like thunder as we move closer to the angels. We hear shouting. "Give it up, Michael. God doesn't know what's best for you. Only you know what's best for you. The time of Jehovah's reign is over. Sam, you fool. You have become blinded by your own selfish interests, and I know what those interests are. A lust for power and domination over mankind. You and your band of angels that you have convinced to rebel are planning to take human women for wives. God will not allow that. I will not allow that. The Beni Elohim may follow you now, but wait until they see where you've led them. You will all exist in the eternity of damnation." The clash is heard as they meet swords. The blue flame of Michael's sword throws Semyaza spinning through the sky. Semyaza gets his balance back. He looks up, and we get a close-up of his face. His eyes stand out as being especially full of malice. "Better to rule in hell." And he thrusts his sword in front of him and stands ready to fight once again. "Than to serve in heaven." He screams and half runs, half flies towards Michael. As he runs, two horns grow on his head, and his eyes begin to glow red. We get a medium close-up of Michael's face, looking saddened by his fellow angel's decision. He gives a sigh and an eye roll. Then he defends himself in battle once again with the new Lord of Darkness. As the camera pans away from the angel battle, we see other angels fighting in the background, and we start to hear the alley man's voice narrating again. Eventually, more and more angels were seduced by a lust for the kind of power that Sam had promised them, and one by one, they fell into darkness. The angels that still sided with God were too many, though. They overtook the rebellion and kicked the rebel angels out of heaven down to earth. They numbered 200, and they were in groups of 10 with 20 leaders. Sam had a meeting with his crew of 20 to plan out their next move. The camera now fades, and the new shot is of many angels standing in the middle of a desert landscape, standing around Semyaza, who we see is glowing red with horns. Just then he closes his eyes, and all that disappears, and he makes himself look human. All the others do the same. Their wings disappear, and they no longer glow. Thunder is heard overhead. Semyaza says, "It is time that we take human wives as planned. Am I going to be the only one who takes the fall for this great act of defiance against God? Or do we all agree to take the fall when punishment comes?" One of the leaders speaks. "Let's swear an oath and bind ourselves to agree that we all are going to do this thing and take responsibility for it." The angels all stand in a circle and place their hands in the middle. The camera dollies backwards and tilts upward towards the sky where there is lightning. We hear the alley man's voice again, and the shot pans over, and then we change to the thunderstorm over to the diner, and the camera slowly descends on the diner, and we are with the men once again. It wasn't long before all the fallen pursued Semyaza's plan and took human women for wives. As it says in the book of Genesis, book 6, verses 1 through 4, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. They became known to mankind simply as the Watchers. Their children were bloodthirsty, murderous, flesh-eating giants called the Nephilim, who had to eventually be killed off by God with a great flood in the days of Noah. The rebel angels were eventually thrown into the pits of hell under the earth to reside there forever, and where they still reside now. The scene cuts to dark angels in hell morphing while narration is heard. Their features have since become distorted and ugly. Their beautiful angelic presence disappeared over years and years of horrifying change. They come now not to have power over mankind, but purely to torture man in rage over their dark exile. They constantly try to tempt people into sin, so that they'll no longer be under the protection of God. They've gained power and influence over the current society of men, flitting about around every corner like shadows, searching to create conflict and misery, pain and hatred, anger and lust. They especially like to influence people to hate God and lose their faith. Hitler's life was completely under their control. They consider it to be one of their greatest triumphs. This technology that you see around here, everything you see here, was given to man by them. They helped man build a Tower of Babel to glorify himself. Meanwhile, there are more and more homeless and hungry every day that get left behind. Meanwhile, pollution and toxic chemicals are through the roof, and a great deal of households are filled with domestic violence, divorce, addiction, and hopelessness. People are enslaved financially to jobs that are horribly demeaning, long hours, and no health insurance in sight. War after war is fought around the world, and massacres are an everyday occurrence. A cold, soulless corporate humanity has become the norm. The Dark Ones are influencing people every day to commit acts of hatred and malice towards one another. They're everywhere. They could be watching us right now. The alley man starts to look around suspiciously. Luke becomes nervous and is startled when the waitress shows up with their soup and cokes. He looks at the man, says, "Hey, fella, I never got your name." The man's face looks tortured, and he pauses for about 10 seconds. He's looking straight at Luke as if to size him up, and then speaks. "Uriel. My name is Uriel." There's a strange, powerful sound behind his voice, and his eyes glow once again with white light.